Hi, Ruhi. How are you doing?
I'm great, thanks. How are you?
Wonderful. Thanks for joining us. The reason we wanted to meet with you today is because we are going and talking to different health professionals from across Canada, talking about all aspects of health. And there are so many aspects of our health that we take for granted, and hearing being one of them. We thought it would be super interesting to speak with an audiologist and learn more about hearing. So I'm going to let you introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about what you guys do, and then we'll have some learning to do from you.
Sure, sounds great. Well, thanks for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here, such an honor, so thank you. Yeah, my name is Ruhi, and I'm an audiologist here in the city of Edmonton, Alberta. I own a clinic called the Audiology Clinic Edmonton. So I actually did my undergrad degree in elementary education at the University of Alberta, and then completed my master's degree in audiology across the pond in Australia. Which was a wonderful experience for me. So I really enjoyed that. Spent 2 years out there, and then I came back. I worked in a private clinic for a few years, and then I went on to open my own. So we've been here now for about 4.5 years since we opened, and yeah, it's been quite an experience to start a business, and then be in the healthcare realm as well has been really interesting and fun.
Wonderful. So speaking of hearing, why don't we start by what are the most common causes of hearing loss?
Yeah, great question. So some of the most common causes of hearing loss can be anything from an excessive amount of wax buildup to noise-induced hearing loss, which can be caused from a variety of things, whether it be from working in noise or being exposed to too many loud noises, whether recreationally or for work. And then, of course, aging is one of the largest causes of hearing loss as well. Those are probably the top three, other than being born with a hearing loss, of course.
Okay, so if wax buildup can cause hearing loss, can I use Q-tip to remove it safely?
No, please don't use Q-tips. I totally get why people want to use Q-tips. I know it feels nice in there. And I know when you put the Q-tip in and you take it out and you see the wax, you're thinking, oh my God, look at me, I got all the wax out. But we do need wax in our ears. There is a purpose for it. It's there to keep dust, dirt, bugs, all that kind of stuff out of our ear. It is natural for your ear to produce wax. The reason you don't want to put a Q-tip in there is because your body does naturally remove wax out of the body itself. So when you put that Q-tip in there and that wax that you see is actually the wax that your body was on its own removing. So the problem with putting a Q-tip in is you're actually pushing the remaining wax in. And so when the wax gets in too deep, it gets to a point that I like to call like a point of no return, where the body is unable to remove it on its own. And so when that happens, that's when the wax gets really hard and starts mixing up with dry skin and all stuff like and things like that inside your ear. And it can become so hard that it's almost like having a scab inside your ear. So to remove it can be really, really uncomfortable, which is why usually it's recommended to put oil in your ears before they'll actually remove it for you with pressured water or with a lighted turret or something like that. So if you can avoid putting Q-tips in your ears, it's always a good idea. It's better to just, when you're taking a shower, to get some water in there just to kind of help move out that wax on its own.
Great advice. And why is it that, you know, when you leave a concert, we don't go to concerts anymore, obviously, during COVID, but your ears are ringing? Does listening to loud music affect your hearing or cause hearing loss?
Yeah, so that ringing that you're noticing is actually what we call a temporary threshold shift. So the threshold of your hearing is actually has actually decreased due to the loud sounds that you're hearing. So the ringing in your ears is actually your body kind of telling you that it's under distress and that it's not really happy. So it is a sign of your hearing starting to go. So just to try to explain it, this is an analogy I like to use. In our inner ear, we have a little structure called the cochlea. It looks kind of like a snail, and it's really tiny. It's like this big. And we're born with thousands and thousands of hair cells in there. So over time, due to various things, including noise, those hair cells can damage or die. So if that happens, that's when we can't do anything with surgery or medicine to fix that hearing loss, and when we have to start going down the road of hearing aids. So if you think about those hair cells kind of like grass, you can only step on grass so many times before it doesn't come up again or it breaks or something like that, right? So it's the same kind of thing. So when you're exposing your ears to really, really loud noises, that's basically causing the hair cells to do something like this, and then eventually will go like this or will break off a little bit, causing that permanent damage to happen. So we definitely recommend using earplugs to solve that problem. So, using those foam earplugs that you can get at the drugstore is totally fine. As long as they're put in correctly, they're going to be effective. If they aren't put in effectively, they won't be. So another option is definitely using something like custom-made hearing protection. If you're working in loud noises, then using what we call like noise, just plugs, like ear plugs inside your ear is really good because you're trying not to get any sound in. But if you're going to a place like a concert or something like that, you obviously want to be enjoying the music. So using something called a musician earplug would be really great. You can get custom or non-custom versions. We do custom versions here. The nice thing about the custom versions is that there's only one way to put them in. They'll be put in correctly. And they come with little filters inside them. And so what that does is that eliminates some of the more harmful sounds from coming in, but still allows you to have conversations with people.
Interesting. And lastly, speaking of prevention and early detection, can early detection delay cognitive decline?
Yeah, so there's been a lot of research that's been done between the correlation of hearing loss and cognitive decline. And the idea behind that really is that if somebody has a hearing loss, that means they're having trouble hearing certain sounds. So sometimes they will rely on other things, say like lip reading or context of conversation. But as we may note, lip reading isn't always the most effective either. Sometimes we can misinterpret or misunderstand. So often what happens is we use other things like contextual cues to try and help us understand what's being said. So if I can, I'll provide an example. If I was to say the word apple versus the word apples with an S at the end, you'll notice that my mouth placement is almost really similar. So if you can't hear that S, it could be really difficult to know what I'm saying. But if I told you I went apple picking and I picked up 26 apples, then your brain is going to say, oh, she said 26. That means more than one. That means there must be an S at the end of that word, right? But if you think about the energy that's required for your brain to use all that context to try to listen to what's happening, and it's not only happening for one word in one conversation, it's happening consistently over time, your brain really needs to find energy to try to listen to what's happening. So then what happens is when you get to that point where you're now in the stage of needing to remember or retain information, you're now running low on energy. So your brain doesn't have enough energy left then to retain that information. So when this continues to happen over time, the little neurons in the brain are like, hey, we're not really doing this retention thing. Let's not worry about it. Let's focus our energy where it thinks it needs it, which it thinks it's in hearing. And then that's what starts leading to things like dementia, Alzheimer's, and stuff like that. So that's why we talk so much about early intervention, because if our hearing does start to come outside the normal zone and we're really struggling to hear, by using hearing devices, it makes it a lot easier, and then we don't have to worry about that as much.
Such great information. And if you could leave us with a takeaway or a final note, what would that be?
I really recommend people just really be on top of getting their hearing checked. It is one of our 5 senses, so it is something that tends to go unnoticed. Similar to your last speaker talking about the eyes, we kind of just feel that if we can hear something, we're fine, or if I don't hear everything, that's fine. People can just speak louder, but as we just talked about, early intervention is so important, but the most difficult thing is not knowing how long you've had that hearing loss for. So coming in and seeing an audiologist, going to a professional and seeing the right people, getting your hearing tested, and then being able to have a baseline assessment so that you can always reflect back on what your hearing was like 2 or 3 years ago is such a benefit. And if you are in requirement of hearing devices, we do truly recommend that you do see a registered audiologist so that you can make sure that you are being assessed and fit properly with the hearing devices that you're spending a lot of money on. So we just want to make sure that they're working effectively for you and for your hearing.
Amazing. And where can people find you?
So yeah, great question. So I'm located in Edmonton. We're called the Audiology Clinic Edmonton. And our address, if you're interested, is 8861 75th Street. But we're definitely findable on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff. So on Instagram, our handle is @YEG_audiology. And yeah, we'd be happy to help you however we can.
Ruhi, it was a pleasure having you. I definitely learned a lot. I'm sure whoever that's going to be listening to this will feel the same. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you. Have a great day.